Welcome to the Adapt AI podcast spotlight series, where we are cracking the code on what actually drives revenue. Our guest today is the legendary Phil Krone, founder of Productive Strategies. He is a multi-decade veteran in high-stakes, human-centered sales. He's not here for soft advice. If you want the real hard truth on sales coaching, fighting the cold calling crisis, and if you should integrate or ditch AI strategies altogether, this is the episode for you. So let's dive in. Philip, welcome.
Thank you. Fun to be here.
Wonderful. So just to get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey as an entrepreneur, and who do you help with?
Well, I graduated from Kellogg at Northwestern for an MBA. I was the only person in my class that went into manufacturing, and it was a small enough firm that I was in charge of both sales and marketing. And I grew that company quite a bit and eventually became the president and then sold the firm in 1993. So we're about 32 years old now. After I sold the company, I thought I would consult to other companies that were like mine, a manufacturer making custom piece parts. I was supplying Ford Motor, Hewlett Packard, General Motors, Holly Carburetor. So I knew a lot about calling on big companies. And so I thought my initial clients would be other contract manufacturers, injection molders, stampers, screw machine, investment casting, powder metal. And so
Mhm.
at the beginning, I would generate leads by speaking at trade association meetings for one of those industries. And
Mhm.
typically, I'd be a keynote speaker on some topic related to sales or marketing. And then people from the audience would come up and give me their card and say, call me next week. I think we need your help. So that's how we got started.
So that's a good strategy. I don't think that, a lot of businesses um, deploy that kind of marketing strategy as being a keynote speaker and presenting yourself as the expert. So
Make a great point because you typically have to get in line to do a talk like that. They plan those events 9 months to a year in advance. So
Mhm.
it's not the only thing, especially if you're a startup. But
Right.
if you think about a business at different phases, if we first talk about the phase where they're already stabilized, they're in business, they've got customers or clients, things are going well, they're making money. At that point, most companies who are consultants or trainers, professional service, they're going to get 70% of their leads from referral from their
Hmm.
network, from their existing customers. But if we go back to a startup, they don't have that
Yeah.
activity going on. And so you
Right.
have to be much more proactive doing networking, doing your own prospecting, knocking on doors, whatever it takes
Mhm.
until you reach that point where you're getting so many referrals that it's almost automatic.
Nice. So that's something that you have executed, as you said, back in the 90s to get started with your business. Is that something that you still do right now
Well,
for productive strategies, or have you explored other ways and methods in order to get more leads?
we use a lot of different ways to get leads. We do get most of our leads from referrals. But
Mhm.
what happens over time is your referral base, your clients retire, sell their businesses, move on, get sick. And so
Mhm.
you always have to be doing some level of lead generation. But we do outbound calling. I write a column every month that we distribute free to anybody
Mhm.
who's interested in business to business or business to government selling.
Mhm.
And, and so there are people who have been getting this for years. I had somebody call me that said they've been getting this for 20 years and now they have a need, or they think they have a need. I would have thought maybe they might have had a need a long time ago. But
Right.
by sending something out like that to your database on a monthly basis, your name is top of mind. And when there's
Mhm.
a need, they call.
Nice. How did you how did you accumulate this email as your leads in your database, even when they're not your clients yet? What are some of the ways that you could share?
Well, one of the ways is to buy lists. There's good list makers that, there's lots of them. Uh, you just specify the industries, the geographic scope, the size firm, and you'll get an Excel spreadsheet back uh, with lists of companies. But we meet a lot of people. We go to networking meetings, we give talks, we mentor people. And in the course of doing that, you just pick up cards and you have the email addresses. And I think right now we have about 16,000 names in our database, and about 12,000 of those get a monthly free newsletter. Another
Newsletter.
thing we did about a year and a half ago, we took a collection of these monthly articles and
Right.
published a book that's available on Amazon called B2B Selling: Insights and Observations of the Business to Business Marketplace. So as I've mentioned a few times, we're not involved with sales to consumers, not unless it's a very complex sale, like choosing an estate attorney. That's business to consumer, but it's really
Mhm.
like a business sale. Or somebody at Merrill Lynch who is being trained to be a good investment advisor. That's to a consumer, but it's a business sale. So all of our articles are about complex sales.
Business to business.
Yes.
Right. So is that also who you're focusing on as your mostly of your clients
Yes.
in productive strategies?
Yeah. And we have clients, I mentioned at the beginning, I started out thinking all my clients would be in this one field. They'd all be custom contract manufacturers.
Right.
And now it turns out we do very little in that area. Manufacturing has declined a lot in this country. There isn't as
Mhm.
much opportunity. But we have law firms, CPA firms, technology firms, manufacturers, uh, just about every vertical market you could think of. But that's because the market sort of took us there. We started out with one idea, but the
Right.
market has its own ideas.
So you made that shift by just exploring other markets and then see which one lands
Right. And
and
really responding
duplicate your.
to demand. We had a law firm come to us in about 1993, and they asked for a strategic plan. And I asked, well, why would you be interested? They told me they were there because they had just lost 5 Fortune 500 opportunities in a row. They were being invited by big publicly traded companies like General Motors. They were being invited to compete to get a legal matter for representation of the firm. And they kept losing them. And so they thought they needed a strategic plan. And I said, strategic plans are about changing the direction of the firm. You don't want to do that. You just have to become better at sales. And
Mhm.
they they took exception because they thought, well, we're lawyers, we don't sell, we wait for the business to come to us. But we changed what they were doing and they won the next five. And they thought it was magic and asked us not to tell any other law firms. But then they were in a guild with other firms that were also law firms, but were different than them. One was
Mhm.
a litigation firm, one was intellectual, one was tax. And so all of a sudden we had four law firms as clients. And so that's how it sort of grows. We had no intention of calling
Mhm.
law firms who, at that point in time, really didn't think they needed it. Today, every big law firm has business development people on their staff. But back in the early 90s, it was a pretty new concept.
That's amazing. And how did you, what kind of changes did you make with this first law firm that you work with that improved their sales or made them get more clients?
Well, our course, which is called Focus Selling, takes about 3 months. There's 4 sessions, half-day sessions with the clients, and they were at the halfway mark. They had had 8 hours of classroom. We were beginning to develop their business development process. And they called me and said, we just got a lead from another Fortune 500 company. And we know we don't want to do what we did, but we also know we're only halfway through your course. So uh, could you still help us? And we said, sure. So we went down to their offices and we said, well, let's see what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much all about them. And we basically what we said to them is, as we've been teaching you, we need to change this from being all about you, seller centric, to being about your
Mm,
prospects. And
yeah.
so completely changed what they did in the meeting, which is
Mm-hmm.
mostly talking about themselves. You know, I went to Harvard, I was law review at Harvard, and I have General Motors as a client and blah, 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 all about
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
We changed it to a discovery session about the client and what their needs were and what their objectives were. And they were hesitant to try the difference, but the managing partner said, we're paying them for advice. We're going to do exactly what they said.
Right.
They had thought when they approached us that maybe their price was too high. And I said, the
Mm-hmm.
one thing I can tell you, you're not losing because of price. And when they won the first piece of business, the managing partner, as he was walking out of the meeting, said, call us Monday. You've got the business. And he said, don't you want to meet with your committee? There was like 4 or 5 people there. And he said, I was watching the body language. They were asleep at all the other meetings. They were engaged in yours and called Monday. So when they called me, they said, we
Mm-hmm.
never even talked about price. And I said, because they weren't looking for the lowest price. They were looking for the best value.
Value.
So he called back on Monday and said, I feel bad we never got around to covering our fees. And they said, well, we assumed it would be Chicago rates, pretty typical. What are they? And he told them, they said, yeah, that's what we expected. So luckily they didn't do what many businesses do, is compete against themselves, negotiate against themselves and lower their price.
Right. It's always, I would see that also trends that they're competing in price instead of like the value that they could bring for their
Exactly.
clients.
And that's
It's
easy to say, but hard to do. And it really takes about 3 months for
Mhm.
us to work with the client to develop what they should be doing to communicate the value and get the
Yeah,
focus off of price.
nice. And are they still your client at this time, at this day?
We're not doing any work for them now. They grew quite a bit. They've brought us back several times.
Mhm.
Sometimes, this is interesting. The second time they brought us back, it wasn't to train more people. The Chicago office all of a sudden was the business generator, and their New York office
Mhm.
was doing the work. And it had always been reversed. New York used to make all the sales, and then Chicago was the worker bees. And once
Mhm.
it split, they asked me to come in and facilitate a day-long meeting where they could work out the new way of doing this and have everybody feel comfortable that it was going to work. But
Mhm.
that was 30 years ago. Most of those lawyers have all retired.
Okay, got it. And are you still servicing or are catering to law firms?
Yes, I think we've helped over 30 law firms.
That's amazing. And is it mostly like did you get them as you said, referrals, the word of mouth, or did you
All different ways. We get Sometimes we'd be brought in to train a specific group. It might be minorities, it might be third-year associates, it might be women, it might be the senior partners. But if it's a big global firm,
Mhm.
somebody has been told to improve something. And so they'd reach out and find us and we deliver a service. But typically there's an initial group that wants to be trained. And
Mhm.
then after that, and people hear about the results, then they want to do it. So we're usually doing that at a big firm, 10 attorneys at a time, and flying to different cities, coast to coast, to deliver to that same demographic in each of their offices.
And their programs? And then is there like a way that you can share on how you retain these businesses after they complete your program?
That's a great question because there's a balancing act there. On the one hand, we don't want to be the type of consultant that they're always dependent on us. We're trying to teach them to fly on their own. And
Mhm.
we really feel we're successful when they feel they understood what we taught and coached them on, and now they're doing it on their own. On the
Mhm.
other hand, there are people who finish the course. And during our course, included in the price. They can call us whenever they want and say,
Hmm.
I'm going to a conference, or I just got this request for proposal, or I'm going to a trade show, or I have a first meeting, or I'm delivering a proposal. Whatever they're doing, they can call and say, could I talk to you for 45 minutes and bounce some ideas off? So we have clients who, once the course is over,
Hmm.
realize the value they got from that during the course, and they'll just call us and pay us by the hour. Maybe we're on the phone for 30 minutes and we just charge for a half hour. So some
Right.
of the clients, just move off, fly away from the nest on their own. And then we have other clients who for years continue to check in with us and say, would you look at my deck? Would you look at my notes? What do you think? So
Hmm.
it's really a combination of both ways.
And do you charge that as an extra when they consult with you after the program, or is that like um a 12-month kind of period that they can check in with you and consult with you?
We typically do it whenever you want, just call and we'll keep track of the time. Now, there are clients that say, we'd like to reinforce this every month. So every month, let's schedule an hour Zoom call and we'll get the class back together online. And, you know, we'll, we'll do an exercise of some kind. Here's some
Mhm.
stories around the table. So
Mhm.
everybody's getting the benefit of other people. So that could be monthly, it could be weekly, it could be quarterly. But typically what happens is people just know they can call and then we charge by the hour.
I see. And since you have clients that are with you for years now, how do you maintain being on top of like the shifts that are happening in your industry, such as, leveraging AI for one?
Well, we're going to hear what's new in their industry from our clients. We're not going to be out researching it ourselves. They're going to tell us something about their business, like maybe the top person, the president of the company,
Hmm.
founder, he was the main business developer for the first 3 years, but now the company's grown and he's got to be more of a president and less of a salesperson. So now they're going to bring in new salespeople, people
Hmm.
who don't have the passion, the contacts, or the technical knowledge that CEO had, who started the company.
Right.
So we'll put both groups, the president and the new salespeople, in a class and transfer a lot of intellectual capital that the CEO, the founder knows, and help them build a process with what we're learning from the CEO.
So you bridge that gap between their sales reps and the CEO, the knowledge from the CEO, and then
Yes,
communicate it in such a way that um, the sales rep would be able to execute the process.
but your question also referred to how do we stay helpful over the years? And one of the things we teach is you do a project or you provide a service or you sell a product, you always have to be going in and doing additional discovery so that you can find out what's changed at the company, what's changed in their market, and
Hmm.
maybe they need another one of our services, a
Right.
different one than the one we sold. We probably
Mhm.
do 30 different things for clients. And so just because we landed on the beach with one service, we should
Mhm.
always be looking for their need for one of the other services.
That's an amazing tip. It's not just like one cut solution. There's more ways that you can help a client to um, grow that relationship with
And
them.
if you're not doing that, your competitor is coming in the back door and maybe he gets a piece of their business. And then eventually he goes after your part, the part you've been doing. So you have to be on top of them. And if you have a lot of clients, you have to have a plan for who do you see monthly or annually or quarterly so that you're sure to stay in touch.
Is that coming from personal experience? Did you experience such things that, some competitors tried to win over your existing clients in the past?
Usually it would show its face when somebody mentions to you that they're buying something from such and such a company, and you go, "Oh, you didn't know we did that too? No, you do that?" So shame on me if I haven't, done a good job. But this happens in every business. You get typecast. When I was in manufacturing, on
Hmm.
every correspondence we sent out, we said we make both zinc and aluminum parts. On every invoice, on every box, it was printed. But we'd have a customer who over the years is buying aluminum parts, and one day he goes out and buys zinc from somebody else who would say, didn't you know we did this? Oh, despite all those boxes and all the little tagline on the correspondence, they're just so overwhelmed with information they can't keep it all straight. So that's why the salespeople have to keep going in and doing
Right.
good.
So it's important to keep on the pulse with your clients to
Absolutely.
check, like, what are the changes they're experiencing. Maybe there's a solution that you already have in your stack that could fit and solve that problem,
That's right.
basically. Yeah. And right now, what are the opportunities and challenges that you're seeing as a trend that
A
businesses that
couple
you're
of trends. One is that a lot of younger people who have grown up on screens don't have the communication skills that the older people who grew up in face-to-face meetings.
Mm,
And I noticed a real reluctance to engage prospects in face-to-face meetings, to pick up the phone and call people who might be good prospects.
mhm.
And, this is good for us, but I think it's bad for the market. And I also think the work at home trend is hurting younger people because they used to hear a lot of stories around the water cooler and there'd be in a meeting or before the meeting, somebody'd say something, a win they just had. And so this would be, tribal knowledge that gets shared within a culture. And with so many
Right.
people working at home, I think that's working against younger people.
Because of the lack of human interaction and
Yes.
being
And
able to
role
connect
models.
with.
I, I know one law firm, a lawyer told me that he's retired. He doesn't charge for this, but he goes down to his old law firm once a week just
Mm.
to mentor young lawyers. He asked them to come in from home on that day so that they can get some real life experience.
It's always good to have that human connection, despite the trends and advancement in technology that we're all experiencing in some way or another.
Now, on the
Um,
other hand, let's flip it. Look at the advantage we didn't have 20 years ago from some channel like this one with a podcast.
right.
The people who will probably pick up one or two ideas from listening to this today that will help them that wasn't available when I was growing up.
Absolutely. It's the advantage as well of being able to share this knowledge globally. Whoever is listening is also creating that positive impact because of this technology. Um, would you say that the impact on of AI and technology right now that we have on our hands are impacting the younger generation than the older ones?
No, I don't know. It's too soon to tell. I hear all these reports of big companies laying people off while they're investing in AI. I think that's the first impact that we're seeing is these
Hmm.
big companies that have laid off. Amazon laid off 14,000 people last week.
Hmm.
They claim that they're taking that capital and using it to invest in AI. So I think that's the first impact.
Hmm.
I think the other impact is that as buyers do more and more research online and believe they understand what they're buying, they may not be as willing to engage as much time with salespeople, but the salespeople usually know more about what they're selling than the buyer knows what he's buying because the buyer's buying a lot of different things and the seller's really selling within a narrower line. So you
Right.
hope that people aren't going to fool themselves by thinking, well, I looked this up in ChatGPT, and so I know what I need, and I'll just put my specs out and buy for my specs. No, they really should consult with two or three prospective suppliers, partners, vendors, so
Hmm.
that they learn more about what they're buying, so they do understand value more than price.
Right. Got it. And is this particular challenge with, let's say Amazon, as you mentioned, the attrition that they have in their company. Is that something that you think will impact the businesses that you're helping, the law firms? Is
Well,
there a
we're a
parallel
lot
that
more
you are seeing?
uh, I, we tend to deal, even though we've had clients that have revenue in the billions, most of the time we're working with small and medium-sized businesses.
Mm.
And I haven't seen an employment impact with them. In fact, most of them, they're growing and so they're looking for people. And so I think there's going to be a shift from going to work for big corporations and now small companies. And small companies are typically who create new jobs. Then big companies buy those small companies and their employee count goes up. But it was really the small companies that created the job.
They need more of like that human factor in their business. Do you think that with the clients that you're helping is it something that eventually they would have to embrace or adapt, like leveraging AI tools, not necessarily replacing um, their employees, but being able to train their employees to leverage the tools, the technology that's already um, people
Well,
are.
I'm sure that'll happen. I mean, it's an unbelievable tool, and I'm sure those types of services will take place. People will use AI to train. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
And do you see yourself as well? Like, is that something that you already are doing in your company in productive strategies, or you think it's
An
not?
interesting question. When it first came out, I know some people who were experts in AI, and I retained them for a while to see if we could have artificial intelligence develop the discovery questions that
Mhm,
we spend months developing for our clients.
mhm,
And we did it on a private network, so we wouldn't be giving away our own intellectual capital. And what we discovered was there could be a role for it. It would write better questions than some of our clients would write before they were trained, but they weren't as good as what we would write or what our clients would
mhm.
do afterwards. So maybe that would get better over time.
Right.
I felt it's more important for me to continue working with clients who need the help
Mhm.
than investing a lot of money in having artificial intelligence replace what we're doing.
Yeah. Some businesses may not still be like in that kind of scope that would need the AI to leverage as what
Yeah,
you've experienced.
the market is so large, and I don't think that's the first thing people would think to do. Most people who come to us know they want faster growth, they want shorter sales cycles, they want more leads, they want a better win rate, they want to sell larger assignments. And there's so much of that out there. There's no need to be spending time with AI. We could teach people to do that
Mhm.
and help them reach their goal.
Well, final questions, Philip, like what would you say or what kind of tips would you share to our audience about uh, apart from like networking, putting yourself out there if you're a startup, but if you're already let's say 3 to 5 years in the business, what are some ways that you could suggest for them to explore in growing their business when it
I
comes to like, client
investing in
acquisition?
themselves by taking training, not necessarily our training,
Mhm,
but training in whatever they're doing. And we've had priests, we've had golf pros, anybody who's in the business where communication is important, persuasion plays a role. Those you should be investing in yourself. And what's interesting is I mentioned earlier at the beginning how important referrals are. Most businesses get 70% of their new business from referrals. There's
mhm,
very little written about it. There's very few courses. We do it informally. We have a short half-day course, but really find people who can teach and train you in whatever it is you're doing in your job, and that'll be a good return on investment. When you think of professional sports, the Chicago Bears, they have a coach or multiple coaches for
mhm.
every one of the positions on the field. And and those are the best people in the world at what they're
Right.
doing, but they're still getting coached. And
Top
so
athletes, yeah, always. top athletes would always get a coach, if not shift coach, depending on their needs.
That's right. And
Yeah.
people should do that for their career. If their company isn't going to pay for it, they should do it. Sometimes when I get people coming to me and they say they're going to pay out of pocket, I always say, why don't you go back to your company and see if you can be a pilot program? Because once this is successful with you, they're going to want to train other people. And
Right.
so that would be my advice. Invest in yourself, get training in whatever the field is you're in.
And get yourself a mentor or a guide who's
Right.
already
And
walked that path.
there, there's a lot of people who have been doing what they've been doing for years. They're very happy to mentor people. Uh, and sometimes it's a one-time discussion and they give them some ideas for a new direction. And sometimes it's let's talk once a month. Uh, but I think young people probably don't realize how eager older people who have been successful are willing to give back some of their time and expertise to help others.
Well, case in point, you are here with us sharing these insights and golden nuggets. How can people find you and connect with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and if you go to Amazon and type my if you type B2B selling Phil Krone, the book comes up. But our website is www.productivestrategies.com. And there's a place, contact us. If they fill something out, say what they want to talk about, we'll call them back. And we usually do it same day we get one of those messages on our website.
So if they want to connect with you directly, LinkedIn is the place. For other opportunities or help, they can find you on your website, and we'll definitely link those information on the show notes.
Yeah, I think it's actually faster to go to our website and fill out the form and say what you'd like to talk about. Uh,
Mhm.
because I don't look at LinkedIn all the time, but I get an email right away if somebody goes to our website.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights and for your time here, Philip. If you have learned so much about this episode, the best way to support this show is to number one, hit subscribe, and number two, share this with your family and friends or colleagues. You have been listening to the Adapt AI podcast Spotlight series. I'm your host, Haley, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. You have some